Hello everyone, good morning and welcome back to the channel. If we're thinking about foods from any culture that bring the most amount of flavor, I think it would be easy for us to land on Indian food, or at least being a strong contender. And among the repertoire of Indian food, one of them is by far the most popular to the American palate, and that is butter chicken. Unfortunately, as you would expect for a dish called butter chicken, it does not exactly come in with a small number of calories typically. It's actually very, very high fat, very rich, and doesn't really bring much protein per the amount that you get. I remember one time I went to an Indian restaurant and I got the tiniest little bowl, and I'm sure that was at least 800 calories. With that in mind, today I am bringing you an anabolic butter chicken recipe that will be incredibly high protein and relatively low calorie by using a few ingredient switches and substitutions while still keeping those spices authentic. Not only have I figured out how to make this recipe more anabolic than it traditionally is, but I've also made it a lot simpler so that it's something that you can throw together as a regular meal for you and your family. Considering that we're making Indian food, it should come as no surprise that the majority of the ingredients we're using happen to be spices. That said, what we're going to need today is about a pound of chicken tenderloin. I highly recommend that you get yourself chicken tenderloin. The reason being that when you're dealing with 4 ounces, you are looking at a ratio of 23 grams of protein to just a half a gram of fat. Besides the chicken, we are going to be using light, I can't believe it's not butter, light butter, cashew milk, rice vinegar, fat-free evaporated milk, tomato sauce, garam masala powder, red chili powder, a no-calorie granular sweetener, salt, onion powder, garlic powder, cumin, ground ginger, ground turmeric, and fenugreek. For making our butter chicken, the first thing we're going to actually do is put together the sauce that we're going to add on at the end. And to put the sauce all together, we are actually going to be using a blender cup and get it all combined. One of the important parts of butter chicken is that the sauce itself is really smooth. And with that in mind, we are going to first add 60 grams of fat-free evaporated milk. Then we are going to add an entire 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. Then we're just going to throw a couple of tablespoons of water into the can to rinse out the last bit of the tomato. Then we're going to add 10 grams of our light butter. To do this, I actually recommend that we tear the container to it and use the negative reading. That way we don't add too much. We are also going to add 20 grams of light, I can't believe it's not butter, the exact same way. Then we're going to get our cup put back on so we can measure the rest of the ingredients in. Starting with 50 grams of cashew milk. In addition to making the recipe easier to make, it will also allow us to get that cashew flavor without having to add whole cashew. We will then add 15 grams of our vinegar. Now it's time for us to add in our spices. The first of which is going to be 5 grams of Garam Masala. If I can make one recommendation to you, it's to not be afraid to go to an Indian grocery store to get your ingredients. For some of these, you might need to go to an Indian grocery store to find them. Next, we're going to add 7 grams of our red chili powder. 3 grams of ginger, 2 grams of garlic powder, 2 grams of onion powder, 3 grams of turmeric, 2 grams of cumin, and 2 grams of salt. Followed lastly by 5 grams of our sweetener. Then we're just going to blend it all up. And we now have our sauce mixed here. So we're ready to get our chicken cooked. Now over at the stove, the pan is preheating, and into it we are going to add 28 grams of our light, I can't believe it's not butter. And we're going to let this melt. While we're here, notice that several of our spices are still here. That's because we're going to be using them to season the chicken directly. Once you've gotten the I can't believe it's not butter to coat most of the bottom of the pan, it's time for us to chop up our chicken and put it in. For our chicken tenderloin pieces, I'm going to be chopping off the little tendon bits from each piece, and then I'm going to be cutting each piece into chicken nugget sized sections. And once we have all of our chicken down, we are going to first add a bunch of salt. Keep in mind that the measurements are a lot more hand wavy here, but honestly, that's pretty okay. Most of our seasonings are negligible in calories when we're considering that we're preparing a pound of chicken. A little bit of onion powder, a little bit of garlic, a few dashes of turmeric, a dash of red chili, and a few shakes of the Garam Masala powder. I highly recommend that when you're cooking your butter chicken, you use either a saute pan like this or a cast iron skillet. The reason you want to use a saute pan, not just a regular saucepan, is because you want those high walls as you add in the sauce so that you're not splashing everywhere. For those of you who might be looking for some new equipment for your kitchen, this pan my wife got me for Christmas. It is a Zwilling Madura. It's a very highly rated nonstick pan, and not only does a good nonstick pan mean that your food doesn't stick as much and is therefore easier to cook, but it's also easier to clean because your messes don't stick as much either. Now that I've gotten all of my chicken covered in my spice mixture, I'm going to increase the temperature up to medium heat. And after a bit of mixing, I'm going to let it sit for a bit so I can get some texture to develop. Once it's sizzling for a little bit, I'm going to stir it again to get a new side to sizzle. And then I'll let it sit for a bit again. Now, I'm going to stir it again until the sizzle calms down, making sure that if I see any raw bits, I get those to be face down. We're only going to have a couple more flips here before we put our sauce in and let that simmer, which is going to be one of our last steps. Now it's time for us to sauce it up. Since you don't want to waste any of your sauce, make sure you use your spoon or spatula to just scrape out the cup as well as you can. And then we're just going to stir and make sure that we get all of our chicken completely coated in our sauce. At this point, the hardest thing we have to do is just let it sit for a while. We're going to stir every few minutes, but we mostly just want to let the flavors mingle and develop. Now, since our sauce is boiling, I just lower the heat down and then I'm going to stir it and let it sit for a little while longer. During this last stretch of time, when your chicken is simmering, it is incredibly important that you pay attention to the smell. This is when you're able to add additional seasonings as you need to get it to really fit your palate. So take in some deep breaths through your nose and see where you want the dish to go. I personally think I need a little bit more of the chili powder, garlic powder, and a dash more turmeric. Oh, and a few extra shakes of garam masala never hurt it. And I'll mix. Of everything that we needed for this recipe, the fenugreek leaves was the only thing that I could not find anywhere except an Indian grocery store. So if you need to, again, you can either check out Indian grocery stores around you, depending on where you live, or order it online. Just make sure that you're getting the leaves and not the seeds. They do sell fenugreek seeds too, but what you want is the leaves. And we're just going to add in a couple teaspoons worth right at the end to let the flavors intermingle. This is one of those key ingredients that really brings the butter chicken flavor home. And we'll just mix that. I really wish that we could have some smell-o-vision for you all. This is so good, and it was so easy. Yeah, the spice list is long, but really, the hardest part was throwing everything into a blender cup. There's not much technique here that's needed, especially the way that I have designed this recipe. And there we have it, anabolic butter chicken. Let's get this plated up and I'll see you in the testing station. Well, here we are in the testing station with our anabolic butter chicken. I have it served up here with some cauliflower rice to give a little bit more volume in a way that is probably second nature to most of us at this point. This is half of the recipe as it's designed to take 2 servings. This is the nutrition facts for this half I have here. And these are the nutrition facts for the whole thing. So everyone, let us begin. Cheers. Just incredible. Like, I think that this is half the calories that you would get at a restaurant, but it brings the flavor, it brings the richness, it brings the spice. I don't know how spice tolerant all of you are, but I know I love spicy food. This delivers on the spiciness it delivers on the flavor, it has that authenticity because I'm using the right spices for the food. Now, I have had a lot of butter chicken in my day. Being a teacher pre-COVID anyway, we had a lot of Saturday full day trainings where we would have some sort of catered meal. One of the more popular options was Indian food, just based on where we are in San Jose. And one of the popular options to get in a spread of Indian food is butter chicken. So I have had this dozens of times at this point, both at trainings and on my own, because I genuinely enjoy it. If I'm going to an Indian restaurant, this is my go-to order. This is just so good. I don't really have a need to go out. Yeah, sure, we're in the lockdown right now. We're trying not to spread the virus, so we're not really eating out. We can bring a lot of that eating out experience home by learning a few recipes that not only will bring us the flavor that we're missing, but can also be healthier versions of what we would get if we were to be eating out. I hope you liked the video. If you liked the video, don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ding on that notification bell so you know when I'm posting up that new content. And one other thing, part of what my wife got me for Christmas was a set of hot sauces from The Heatonist, which you might be familiar with from Hot Ones on YouTube. And I have this bottle of The Last Dab. We are currently just a little bit past 300 subscribers. I want to do a challenge when I reach 1,000 that involves this. What ideas do you all have for how I can make a challenge involving The Last Dab? Drop those suggestions in the comments down below. I am honestly frightened to try The Last Dab. So I want to make it worth it. I want to make it something that gets to be an entertaining experience for all of us, where I have a reason to push through whatever spicy discomfort I end up having to go through. Also, coming up, when we reach 500 subscribers, I'm going to do something that involves ammonia snaps. I personally really enjoy getting those whiffs of ammonia off when I'm doing powerlifting. It's one of the things that I genuinely miss about the really intense training that I was doing prior to the pandemic. Even if it's not going to be part of getting a big lift in, it is definitely a part of who I am and my personality. And it's honestly just really entertaining to see because I'll just be crying up a storm. If you have any suggestions where it's like, I either do this or I'm having to smell the smelling salts, drop those suggestions in the comment box down below. Thank you again for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you again very soon. And always remember, he says always remember to stay worthy.